What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome back to another Monday Hangout and Hobby. This is our weekly Monday show where I am joined by the magnificent Jay from Mohawk Miniatures, and he's here to teach me how to become a better painter, better artist, how to make my models get that magical, elusive fourth color on top tables of tournaments. So we're here. We're excited. Jay, how you doing?
I thought you were teaching me today.
Oh,
I
is that
thought
what
we
we're doing?
switched it up.
Absolutely. Tell you what. All right, we'll start off then. This is a tape measure, and let me show you the rule book you're going to be using.
That's the quality coaching everybody needs. Here's the rule book. There's your tape and dice. Get going.
Nice and
No, I'm
easy.
doing great, dude. I'm doing great. I missed obviously last week. I was in
Mhm.
Germany. You were recovering from your Streamhouse RTT. It's been a busy week, but we're here and ready to go. We're going to do some hazard stripes today, which, as you can tell from all this, is about my favorite thing ever in the world. So.
I also absolutely love hazard stripes. I'm scared of doing them small, but luckily I've got someone here to teach me. And
Well, let's
that's
just do one big one. If we just do all this in yellow, we could say it's a zoomed-in hazard stripe.
oh, absolutely that I can do easy. Well,
That works.
I've done hazard stripes that I like on my knights because it's a very large surface. I once did them on Space Marines because I had an Iron Warriors army when I was in Czechs Notes
Awesome.
middle school. But I'm hoping at one time that I'll revisit that project, and by that I mean like start it over from scratch.
Okay.
And so I've always had a soft spot for chevrons and hazard stripes wherever we can get them.
Nice. I will admit my knights are very definitely loyalist Iron Warriors, which is why they are covered in hazard stripes and are silver. And if you want to
I love
revisit
it.
your Iron Warriors project, I've got a great way of very quickly doing silver that looks kind of dirty, which you could definitely put on every part of your.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great. We'll have to do that next time then. All right.
We can put that in for further down the line for sure. Most definitely.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, so thank you so much everyone who's tuning in to watch us. As always, if you're watching this, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit all those buttons. It really helps us make all this quality content for you all. As well, make sure you support Jay at Mohawk Miniatures. He has both a YouTube and a Twitch channel, I believe. And
Yeah.
you should go.
Everything with at Mohawk Miniatures, basically.
There you go. Go subscribe to everything. He is live streaming 6 days a week now, thanks to me. So if you want to
Cheers,
catch more paint action, there's definitely places to do it. Jay's a great resource.
Well, Jay is something at least. A great resource, maybe
Yeah.
overinflating it, but we're at least a resource.
Hey, you're not lying if I'm the one saying it. You're good.
I like that logic. Yeah.
Right on.
This is good. I've got a load of other things I'll brief you on how to say for next time. Then, in that case.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay, so today we're going to start working on this guy's weapons. Over the last couple of streams, we've done some wet blending, we've done some glazing. That's going to help us with all the armor. We've done some non-metallic metal, which, to be fair, John, I am not surprised is the wrong word, but I am a little surprised, I guess, at just how good of a painter you are. I think
Oh,
everyone
thank you.
gets this kind of wrong impression of like the really competitive gamers, where it's a case of, listen, I've put 3 colors on and it has something on a base. There's a tuft in there in some part of my army. What more do you want? You've done really well.
I appreciate that.
Really well.
Yeah, I think I also do myself a disservice because every once in a while I change my army about 3 days before list submission is in. Sometimes the day list submission is in, and so
Ooh.
I have stepped on the rake of, oops, here's 3 colors in a weekend. I've done it to myself before. So, but this is part of the long-term project to be better and to not do that anymore.
Yeah, and you're definitely doing well. So. We've learned some techniques. We're going to be using some of those techniques today. One of the things we're going to do is some layered blending on the sword to begin with. So we're going to paint the black, the sword, and the gun. We may as well, at the same time, paint all the soft bits in the armor. So little bits in the elbows, shoulders, back of the legs, all that kind of stuff. Paint all those in black, get a good base coat on those, and then we can start working the highlights for everything all at once at that point. Nice and quick and efficient.
Okay, let's do it. All right.
So I've got some Thamar Black from P3 on my palette. You're probably using an Army Painter Black?
Yep, Army Painter Matte Black.
There we go.
And for anyone who's watching this, by the way, please feel free to chime in the chat. Let us know if you're watching this from work, if you're maybe doing some hobbying of your own. it's always a little bit weird because obviously we're going into 10th edition very soon. And
Very
so
soon.
there's kind of that like, ooh, what do I paint? What do I work on? And my answer to that is the things that you've been putting off for a while.
That's a good answer.
So my side project is that I'm doing off camera right now is my Chaos Knight army, the same one that I took to the Streamhouse RTT this past week. If you want, you can catch all of those games in the War Room, which if you're not in the War Room, got a free trial right below, so click on that link. But I've been working on my Chaos Knights because I'm like, you know what? There's not that many models in the Chaos Knight army, and they're all magnetized, so they're probably not going to change Chaos Knights to the point that me having big guys and armigers isn't what I need.
That's probably going to be the only 2 data sheets in the book when a new book comes out. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
It's going to be big guy, bigger guy, or small guy.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst case scenario? They make me paint a Knight Valiant. I'd be so happy. I wouldn't even be mad.
One day they'll be good. It might be 10.
Hey, 10th edition has got to be their
11.
edition.
To be fair, my buddy Lewis, who's a solid dude, he made a name for himself trying to beat me for number 1 Knights, but by running double Valiant.
That man
The guy
is
clearly has
brave.
got the largest stones in the world at this stage.
Oh, completely. That is highly impressive, and I've got to say, I won't be the trendsetter on it, but I would love it if we had an excuse to run the Valiant in the next edition.
Well, he went 4-1 at every event he played, so
That's impressive.
you can make it work somehow.
All right, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm just gonna have to sprint 2 Raven Valiants into people and just tap that 2 CP for the auto explode when I need to.
Oh mate, that's legit when it goes.
Yeah.
got to use that. So I don't want to have any spoilers, obviously, for people in the chat that may not have seen the Streamhouse RTT. But if we could go on a happy John or unhappy John rating, how do you feel your performance was with your Chaos Knights?
Oh, happy John.
Happy John.
I'm always happy.
Awesome.
I get to play if I get to play Knights on stream, and I got four games on stream with the Chaos Knights. So if you're wondering about how many, I got 4 games in, and that was very happy John.
Good work, dude. See, Chaos Knights without Abaddon and Thousand Suns Flamers. Like, what the hell is going on here?
It was pure. Nothing. No one else was walking the dogs. And I even had a big man. Didn't even do 13 dogs. I just can't. I can't get rid of one big knight. I know you've got me beat on that. You like to run all your big knights, but I can't play Chaos Knights with no big knights. Yeah, 3 or nothing, easy. Hey, we got Nurgle Matt in the chat. What's up, Nurgle Matt? Hope you are doing well.
Bro. Abaddon's Lost Arms as well. He is here. I will be working on a Horus Ascended model for him very soon.
Oh, that's beautiful. The Horus Ascended. It's on the long bucket list of models that I see, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta find a way to get that. Unfortunately for Horus, I think that the line is gonna jump him in the queue because I can use use him in games of 40k.
I mean, I think using Horus Ascended, because he's quite large, is going to be an acceptable proxy for the Lion for a variety of reasons.
Oh, obviously. I mean, I was thinking Abaddon, but yeah, we could do the Lion too.
Yeah.
Really, not much of a difference. I'm sure the Lion's going to come out and be phase capped and chapter mastering people. I'm really hoping that the Lion comes out as just like a nice amalgamation of Morvenn Vahl and Abaddon with all of the absolute best parts of both.
No, that's just going to be gross. Like either one of those two, I look at on the table from usually the other side of it going, oh no, this is going to suck. Those two together is just nightmarish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And by that, I basically mean just an Abaddon that fights twice. That's what I want the Lion to be.
With 20 attacks.
Obviously. How many he needs. Purges 20 heretics at a time.
Exactly how many he needs, yeah. Yeah. No more, no less. 20 is the exact right amount. Oh, gross. I think I have 5 people that want me to paint the lions, so I'm going to batch paint a Pride of Lions, which I'm bizarrely looking forward to, but I'm not doing the blade card. I don't want to do them.
Yeah, it is kind of weird because they announced the lion for they announced that he's going on pre-order next week, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh man, and they showed off the box that he's going to come in. I
Yes.
I'm honestly not mad about that because I have a bunch of Blade Guard, but they're all the Indomitus Blade Guard.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
Single
like
post. Yeah.
the new Blade Guard kits a lot. So I'm very, very okay with that being what they're doing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Blade Guard. But honestly, I mean, when the Indominus box came out, I think the Art of War house just got 5 of them. Because Richard wanted 100 Necron Warriors. We have 2 Space Marine armies. So we just got a lot of Indominus. And I've kind of wanted those new Blade Guard sculpts for a while. So I'm pretty happy.
They're pretty tight. I've done a couple of them. And I will admit the dude that's wiping his sword on a
That's
rag
exactly
for you
the
to
one.
Paint whatever you want is brilliant.
Yeah, that's exactly the one I want. Just get a nice Chaos Cloak or Chaos Banner and just be like, this is worth nothing to me.
Well, I out of that, I brought it from home.
Oh yeah, that too. I mean, maybe the Dark Angels, could do that. Just brought like a nice little hand towel. Akiel is saying big news. Warcom is showing off a new Tyranid model. Well, unfortunately, I'm a Tyranid player, so you're just gonna get about 30 seconds of silence from me real quick while I click on some links. Hold on. Jay, have you ever painted Tyranids?
By just describing what I said. No, that's all.
Oh, I'm going to be honest. I'm on the Warhammer community website, and I'm not seeing a new model. And someone has gotten me good. Akiel, April Fool's Day is traditionally on the 1st, not the 10th. And I respect the hustle. However, banned.
Yeah, it's 0-1, not 1-0.
Man, someone really got my hopes up there. That's just kind of cruel. I'm maybe it's one of those things where they put it on their Facebook page and it'll be on the website in like 15 minutes or something. So I'll check again after the video. But oof. Have you ever painted? I'm sure you've painted everything. But have you ever like gone to town on a Tyranid army?
Oh yes. Yes. 2 years ago, actually, for our second stream anniversary, I painted a 1,000-point Tyranid army to give away.
Okay.
They were like pink flesh. All the soft bits were pink, like a light pink skin. All of the carapace was a really bright, which is kind of similar blues to this. But then we did this like blue mottling on it. All the claws, teeth, and things were quite dark black, I think. And then we based everything on swamp bases. So you had zoanthropes floating through this swamp, a couple of carnifexes stamping through it, a load of Nid warriors. So yeah, there was plenty of what ended up being 9th edition like prime Nids plus two carnifex. So it was a good army, it's just way ahead of its time. Like way ahead of its time.
Fair enough. Well, I am all right, you know what? They weren't lying. There is in fact a new article.
Excellent.
And I'll go ahead and say it. We all have our armies that are like, oh, we want to repaint them when we get around to it. Like everyone has that. Tyranids is 1,000% my number one for that. Because Tyranids were my first army. So the first army that I ever painted was Tyranids, and it was a very long project from like 4th to 7th edition. Because for 4th, 5th, and 6th, Tyranids were the only army that I owned, and therefore the only army that I played. And then 7th, first half of 7th was still all Tyranids all the time. Kind of until Genestealer Cult got announced. That was about when I started to buy models that weren't Tyranids. But as you can expect, those Tyranids were painted over the course of time of me being in middle school, high school, and early college. And so you can kind of guess what the quality of those models were.
Yeah. Room for improvement
there's room for improvement. I learned a lot of lessons. Like 2 years in at an RTT, someone finally said to me like, "Hey, John, you need to learn what a wash is."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, like my first Tyranids were like primed white, because why would white's hard to paint? Why wouldn't I just prime it white? And then I just painted the carapace like solid purple. Didn't know how to thin my paint, so I just did it thick. And then nice. Red on the claws, and that's like the first 1,000 points of Tyranids were about that. And like a dot of black on the eyes, but I didn't have a detail brush, so just a big dot of black on the eyes. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I still have them, of course, because I don't really like to get rid of Tyranids.
I had Tyranids way back in second edition, where
Mm-hmm.
Tyranid warriors looked like some alien version of Bugs Bunny with the huge buck teeth and
Yep.
all that. Had the Screamer Killer Khan effects in metal, which I remember was so heavy it fell off the table onto the floor once and made noise so loud that my dad ran upstairs thinking I'd fell over, which was obviously not good. But I painted my first like actual proper playable Tyranid army run, just a few models that I had when they got re-released in 4th-ish edition, and they all had the plastic, and they were kind of similar to what you described, to be honest, except I sprayed everything black with a can, painted some blue highlights and stuff, painted the claws blue, and then sprayed everything with hairspray.
Ah, excellent.
Because hairspray made it look slightly satin and xenomorphy.
There you go.
And they were terrible, but they were done in a weekend.
Look, we have all been there. We have all been there.
And look where we are now.
Yeah, see, you're doing much better.
Barely better, yes. It's barely better.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so I've base coated everything with black that's going to be black or silver. So any of the things that would do non-metallic silver, so the teeth on the chainsaw, the bits on the back of his backpack,
perfect,
all that kind of stuff. Paint all that black. If you've done all that, we can move on and start getting some highlights down.
I have indeed. I'm 100% ready.
Excellent. So we'll start with the sword. I'm going to use some of the same highlights on the gun, but then we'll leave the gun for a while while we do the rest of the sword. So on my palette, I've got some Eshin grey and I've got some black. We want to do a layered set of highlights. Now, we could just use grey, thin it right down to a glaze, and just do that until we're happy with it. Just kind of what we've done with the armor. We've done wet blending on the armor, so you don't really need to look at that skill again here. So what we'll do instead is just layered blending. Now, if you've got two colors and you want to go smoothly from one to the other, you want a gradient. If you plot it on a graph, it's kind of a nice straight line, right? And you kind of with me there?
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Okay. If you had a gradient that was a big curve, like an exponential curve, then obviously it goes from dark through a little bit of a midtone to suddenly very bright, and that's what we're going to do on the gun, and that will help make it look glossy and like a shiny black pistol, right? But for the sword, because we're going to intersperse this with hazard stripes, we don't want it to be too jarring, and so we need this to be reasonably smooth. We also need to think about the fact we're going to put hazard stripes on this, and so the direction of our highlight won't necessarily just be along the length of the sword, but also across the width of the sword. So to do that and keep it smooth, we're going to use a little bit of a formula. If we start off with 100% black, we want to end up with 100% grey, and we do it smoothly, we can do that in nice, easy steps. So if we start off by taking 3 parts black, to 1 part grey, and on the next pass we can do 2 to 1, and on the next pass after that we can do 1 to 3, and then just this. And what we've basically done is gone through 5 steps. The first one being pure black, and then a little bit of grey, equal amounts grey, mostly grey, and then all grey.
Okay.
And if you think about any transition being this kind of mathed out thing, then you can always get as smooth a transition as you want. You just got to work out how much room you've got. The more room you've got, the more steps you might need. So you might have to do like 5 to 1, and then 4 to 2, 3 to 3, and so on and so on and so on as you go through.
Yeah.
But it's a really easy way of creating a step guide for a gradient. So keep it nice and thin, because obviously we don't want to have a load of texture on our model. We don't want it to be a glaze, though. We want this to be able to sort of put down a layer, maybe 2 if you feel you need to, and then move on to the next one. This is the difference between doing glazed layered highlighting and just layered highlighting. This one will be slightly rougher, but we can get away with it here because we have a small distance to put our blend over, our gradient transition. And because it'll be broken up by a load of hazard stripes coming in here, it'll be harder to see any inconsistencies in our highlights. So you don't have to worry too much about it being not perfect. Make the darkest point the bit closest to the cutting edge of the chainsaw, and the brightest point up at the very back of the blade. On the top section, just work all the way up, with the brightest point being at the top of the blade, darkest at the bottom, and obviously the other side do the same thing.
Okay, perfect.
Happy? Cool.
Yep. Look, if I can make art easier by secretly making it math, I'm happy. I know which one I was better at in
Math
grade
can be
school.
beautiful.
Math is beautiful.
We were talking about maths poetry on stream at the weekend, which I imagine most people sat there going, "Oh my god, you giga nerd!" But I love numbers. I'm dyslexic, and numbers were never a problem for me. But letters and like, just regular words were. But numbers, beautiful.
Yeah, numbers are easy. It's just 10 options, and then you just kind of keep adding them by multiples of 10.
Depends on how far you go through maths, because it starts off with 10 options. It quickly becomes numbers that are then imaginary, which I was like, hold the fuck on.
Yep.
Why is this number imaginary? It either exists or it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I had to do just higher and higher levels of math as I was going through my degree, so fair enough.
Daniel Konjovic joining the chat. Daniel's the guy that ran the Firebug Open I attended last weekend.
Oh, fantastic.
And was my reason for not being here on Monday. Well, I will say that tournament was brilliant. It's one of my favorite events I've ever been to. Not only because I played 6 absolutely brilliant people, like genuinely everyone I played was just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I had loads of fun with my Noble Demons, and somehow managed to come away from the event with favorite player. So,
marvelous.
Considering I barely spoke the language, I am amazed still by that.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers to you, Dan. You will meet Dan at the WTC, by the way. He's going to be one of my referees.
Excellent. I'm highly looking forward to it. I really am just so basically I've already planned my entire summer just around August. I have no idea what's going to happen in September, honestly. Because I'm just going to go into relapse, I guess.
So, I don't know if the chat knows this or is allowed to know this, so I'd be very cryptic about it. But does everyone know the story of your Custodes army from last year's WTC?
Oh, I mean, I don't really play the secret game with WTC. I mean, I might with 10th edition, but at the moment, everything's on the table. Are we talking about the story of how long I had to play it?
How you became a Custodes player, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll tell it. Hey, we've got Scary in the chat. What's up, Scary?
Hey, Ribben. How's it going, bro?
Always good to see Mr. Rizvin in the chat. I'm gonna out Scary real quick, actually. So it's not logical, but to me, a very white English speaker. But Scary's first name is pronounced Rizvin, which I wouldn't have guessed because I didn't see a Z in it, and I'm very literal with languages because I'm not very cultured. But Scary is just such a gem that he just has been letting us say it wrong for a while, and we finally one of us heard Rizvin. I think Jack has to get credit on this, and Scary's like, oh yeah, that's how you actually pronounce it, and we're like, oh my god, we're so sorry. So Rizvin, and Scary, if I'm wrong or if I've outed you, then I'm terribly sorry. But also, this man deserves to have his name pronounced right. So I was very embarrassed because I love Scary, and I'm like, oh, I've been saying your name wrong for 3 years. And he's just such a gem that he was just so polite the whole time.
Great dude.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely great dude.
All right. So anyways, Custodes and WTC, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do I run that story?
Yeah. So last WTC, my first WTC, we're gearing up for the wonderful event. We're all picking our armies and doing our processes in Team USA, which I won't go terribly too much into detail in. But anyways, I was planning on being our Tyranid player for that event. Because I've been getting a lot of reps with the Tyranid book. And
Tyranids were strong army.
Tyranids were strong. No, they had just gotten a nerf. So I was trying to kind of re-put the army back together, I guess would be the way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Which was taking me a little bit of time. When my armies get nerfed, my usual process is honestly abandon them for 1 month, then come back and restart.
Cool.
Because at this point I have enough armies that I usually if they nerf Sisters of Battle, I'll just be you know what? I'm just going to give them a month to breathe, and then I'll come back in and kind of see how I'm feeling and what I can do. And usually there's something I can make work. And for anyone who maybe is unfamiliar with the World Team Championships, the World Team Championships is a competition held in Europe every summer-ish, where every country who's an attending member sends an 8-person team. So it's Teams 40K. You'll often hear people say that Teams is the best way to play 40K. I happen to agree.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing Teams tournaments for 9 years now. But WTC is the ultimate team event because instead of it being your buddies against a different group of your buddies that live in a different state, it's country on country. And so you get a wonderful chance to meet people that you otherwise may not have had the privilege to cross paths with.
I've heard it described as the Olympics of 40K before, and being involved in the organization, I can definitely see that. I think that's a good comparison.
Mm-hmm. So it was my first time attending WTC, which was absolutely an honor. And I was planning on playing Tyranids. I'd been working on some stuff. I don't think I had the list where it ended up being for kind of like my post-WTC run where I ran the Kraken Spore Mine Factory. Mm-hmm. But it's pretty good. And also, to give some context here, because of the release of the, I guess, the Nephilim pack, they pushed list submission back a week. And this is important to the story. It's very important to the story. Because I knew that, going into list submission, there'd be a whole period of play testing where I'd probably not give my girlfriend the love and attention that she deserves because she's wonderful. And I usually just kind of prepare for this and I plan around it and life goes on. So I had a week-long vacation planned, which was starting the day after lists were due. Like family reunion, she's gonna come meet the family, a condo on the beach, right? A wonderful thing to do for your girlfriend in summer.
And a great pre-break as well.
Absolutely, yeah, because I knew once lists were submitted, there'd be a day or two, and then lists would be live, and then I'd be diving into things deeply, etc. But anyways, they pushed list submission back a week, and I'm not canceling my vacation, to put it bluntly. It's because my whole family was there. I'm not telling them to push back their vacation. That's really not going to work. So anyway, I go on vacation as a Tyranid player. And you'll notice that I did not play Tyranids at WTC. So we were having a little bit of trouble where we really liked the list, the Custodes list, but one of our teammates was playing it, and it wasn't really working for him, to put it simply, where nothing wrong with that. Sometimes a list that's not your list just doesn't work for you the way that it works for other people. So I'm on a beach with my girlfriend on vacation when I find out that my WTC faction has changed because we decided to put me on the Custodes and hand Tyranids to our other player. And this is a happy ending for the record. We didn't just completely kill the team by doing this, which is really good. Because if I had bombed with Custodes, I don't know what I would have said or done, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was very funny because just kind of the way we needed our team to function, we decided to switch not the lists but the players at the last minute. And we didn't change the list much. I think we changed the Tyranid list a bit. The Custodes list didn't change at all because I just didn't have a game with it. So I didn't play a game with my WTC Custodes list before we submitted it to for the Olympics of 40K, which was the singular most important event I've ever attended in my life. Because I'd never been before, and it has been on my bucket list for over a decade.
You did all right though, John.
I did all right.
Never played a game with this. Had all my practice with the army that he's playing, and now I've got this weird ass Custodes list to try and work with.
I got a couple of games in. Luckily, I know Custodes because I had taken them to the LVO before, and this was a very different style list. But I'm aware of the book, and I owned the army. So as soon as I heard, I got on Forge World, placed an order, got my own dreadnoughts so that I could paint them up in my scheme, and made sure that I had the whole list armed and operational. Luckily, I already had 3 Caladius. I already had, I think I already had all of the Forge World dreadnoughts. I just needed literally the plastic contemptors that you use for the Meltagun and Fist guys, because who has those lying around? Everyone has 1, no one has 3.
I was going to say, I've got 1 on the shelf.
Everyone has
for
1.
Demo painting lessons.
That's exactly. But no one's painted in the Custodes colors. So it's very, very fun. I'm going to take a quick pause here and give a shout out to Vic. Vic has given us a super chat. Thank you so much, Vic. You are an absolute hero. Vic says, this stream is such a vibe, sitting here painting Irilith along with both these legends. Vic, so happy that you're joining us and painting with us. Irilith is the Forge World Phoenix Lord, right? That's the Shadow Spectre Phoenix Lord?
Well done, yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering how many people in chat would be like, is this an Age of Sigmar thing?
I honestly did look at that, and I'm like, he's painting Lumineth? Wait a minute. That's an I, not an R. Not an L.
Vic, absolutely great to have you here, dude. You're one of my favorite people to see at a tournament, because if I get paired against you, I'm likely to lose these days. I did win our first game, but I'm very, very likely to lose now. But it's always a pleasurable losing experience, I will say.
Yeah. I've never gotten to play Vic, but I had the pleasure of meeting him at Las Vegas this year, and Vic's absolute gentleman. So I would love to
in Belgium.
That's very possible, very possible. And Vic has his own podcast, right? Fireside Chat. Vic, Chat. Please call me out if I got the name wrong. But I've listened to a couple of episodes, and it's a great show. So if you always need more 40K content, shout out to Vic as well. He puts out some great stuff. All right. So, anyways, at Custodes, I did get a couple of practice games in after the list was submitted.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, not as many as I'd like. The way that I normally do teams is I do a lot of opposition running, where I did a lot of time picking up a list from another team, someone that we were interested in, and then playing games with it into my team members. I like to do a lot of opposition testing for teams events, and I'm usually the one doing that. So I did not get as many games in with my list as I should have. As a matter of fact, I made sure that I got 2 games in at Belgium on Thursday, so that I was confident with the list. This is one of those situations where I was like,
just want to highlight this. John played 2 games and was confident with the list.
Well, there's not a lot of points to change.
That outlines your skill. Like, I played 6 games with Nurgle Demons, which is admittedly like the absolute other end of the faction tier list at the moment. And it was only in game 6 where I went, I actually kind of know what this army is now. So
yeah. Well, I play a lot less games of 40K than people assume, but the one thing that I'll caveat is that I spend so much time talking about 40K that it kind of covers the gap.
Yeah.
Especially because I when I do get to play games, I luckily get to play some very high quality opponents. So that helps as well. So I just make sure that I get a lot of high quality reps, and then talk about it in the theory. And luckily, I got to talk to the people who had designed the list, because Jack Harpster wrote the Custodes list. He was just kind of locked in as our Tau player at the time. So I talked a lot with him about what the philosophy of it was. And this, you'll appreciate this, Jay. I kind of had to get in the mindset, because I don't know how often you've seen me play, but the Custodes list isn't my normal play style, to put it extremely politely.
Not really.
And I kind of had to get in the mindset of, like, I am a Custodes. I'm going to, just run at people because I'm better than them, and I'm going to kill them because they're unworthy. And
brilliant.
I find that I do my best when I play the army like I think it's supposed to. So, no joke, on the flight over to Belgium, I was reading Master of Mankind, like the Heresy model that goes all over. I was getting into the minds. I've read it before, but I was like, let me reread this. Let me get into Custodes mindset. So I just immersed myself in Custodes for a month, and I came out of that not being a janky player. I came out of that just an aggressive pressure player, just throwing dreadnoughts at people. And then I had to go back to playing Tyranids as soon as I got back to kind of, get back to where I belong.
Yeah. Be normal again. Yeah, I like it.
Right on.
Nice work, dude. Okay, I've done the sword. Our first highlight. We've worked up to full grey. You can see we've got a nice smoothish gradient. I then went back with some black and just changed it a little bit here and there and helped smooth it out.
Yep.
With the gun, what we're going to do here is a little bit more of a kind of almost edge highlight style, similar to GW. You don't need to draw boxes around everything, though. So essentially concentrate on the top layers of everything, and then brighter at the front. So imagine a gradient from here to here, but only around the edges. Okay?
Okay.
So just work that way. Don't worry about anything like the magazine thing, holder and clip, and this bit at the back. We'll do these in non-metallic silver, same with the barrel. But the reason we're going to do this is because we're going to go from a very dark grey to a very, very light grey extremely fast. And that will give us a feeling of very shiny material. So it's a way of doing a reflective surface. It works really well on stuff like this. It's much harder on stuff like this, which is super smooth. So just a little bit of edge highlights, style work here, and you'll be fine.
Gotcha. Now, my Assault Intercessor happens to have a plasma pistol. So I assume I'm going to
Even better.
conceptually do it the same way, and I'll just save that barrel for later.
Yep. Absolutely. All the metal work exactly the same. And then we'll do plasma as its own thing when we get to that stage.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure that'll have to be another day.
It will definitely have to be another day. So question from chat. Have we talked about the Tyranid Leaper model? We haven't talked about it.
We haven't
But
really
we have
talked about
both
it.
seen it now.
I have seen it. I absolutely pulled it up. I haven't read anything about it. It looked like there weren't any rules. It's just showing us a lictor. Honestly, what I really want to see here
Pretty much
is the size of this model. I haven't watched the video because I don't want to mess up the audio of the stream. But I cannot tell.
It's hard to work out if it's a 40 or 50, isn't it, for the base?
Yeah, I'm guessing that that's at least a 40. Which means that it's relatively close to the current lictor in size. But there's also a small part of it where I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't know, it looks a little bit smaller than a lictor.
It looks like slighter. It doesn't have the same slight bulk that the lictor's got. They're not particularly bulky things, but this looks a little bit skinnier, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, I'm reading the words real quick. It looks like they're just describing it as like a kind of like a similar to a lictor, and it's an ambush predator, but they're pack hunters instead of being lone wolves. That to me, again, I honestly like. I'm wondering if these are on 32s or 40s. I don't think this is a 50 mil, but I cannot really tell. Well,
Yeah, I know what you mean. It could be.
hopefully we get some pictures, and like sometimes they just kind of put up some more pictures, like as they advertise the article. I'd love to see if this next to a Space Marine or next to a new Terminator. That's kind of what I would love to see right now.
We've got four big claws, some slightly Haruspex-ish jaws, and then they've got this kind of prehensile tail spike as well. What I'm guessing is the leader has got the good old Tyranid Mohawk going on. Love that, obviously.
Oh, you got to paint the Mohawk. I mean, how many different Mohawks do you have, like model wise? Do you give all of your Custodians and Space Marines Mohawks? Like, do you just like kind of weave it like a golden thread between all of your work? I feel like I would. No?
I should.
Yeah, like literally every time someone commissions, unless they specify otherwise, I would just get as many Mohawk heads as possible and just put them on the Space Marines.
So I have this absolute objection to warriors in the 41st millennium walking out into a gunfight without their helmet on.
Fair enough.
Like, you stupid knob. Put your helmet on. And I remember reading, I think it was one of the Araman books or something. He's just walking around executing Space Marines by shooting in the face with a bolt pistol because they don't have their helmets on. He's laughing about it. I'm like, you know what? He's absolutely right. What a bunch of idiots. So I put helmets on everything. However, I've got a Custodes army planned. I've just bought an absolute ton of 8-bound.
Ooh.
Because the quickest way for me to get my War Eaters done is to go fully elite, just get 18 models painted up for normal 8-bound, another 9 done for exalted 8-bound, throw on a table in Invocatus and a few other bits and pieces, and done, right? But I've wanted to do a Custodes army for a little while as just a little, like, quick palette cleanse job. 2,000 points of Custodes, I reckon I can do in a couple of weekends to a reasonably okay standard. But what I want to do, this is based on a little bit of lore from the Angron book, is Angron flew past this like ship full of Primaris boys who are apparently completely resistant to chaos, right?
I don't know about that, but yeah.
That's the propaganda.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely.
Of them.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, all these Primaris boys were tearing at each other and chopping people up, and they'd all fall into corn. So I thought, why don't I do that with some Custodes? And this is just for reference. This is not one of mine. But instead of them being like loyal sons of the Emperor, why don't we have them fall into corn? And instead of big old Warden axes, chain axes. These are about the right size for 8-bound heads and arms to fit. And there's going to be a lot of spare parts in those boxes. So why don't we do a army that the color scheme is still officially Custodes, so like the gold and the red or purple or whatever we choose to do, but we make them our corn Stodes.
I mean, I feel like you have to do brass, not gold, but you could get some coin custodies. I cannot sanction
Yes.
this myself, obviously, but I have no doubt that you would be able to make it look beautiful, even if, again, I would not condone that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but Conker's not
Ah,
about your feelings.
yeah, no,
So,
that's you're not strictly wrong.
so yes, Corn Stodies is going to be a quick army to do, and I reckon I can get a load of Wardens done, some Alarus, Trajan. Probably not bother with bikes.
I don't think you need the bikes anyway. Me personally, I've never really vibed with the bike heavy style of custodies.
No, same. I've painted a lot of them. And I think that's where that comes from. It's just I don't want to do any more. Just quickly, I've moved on to also highlighting the soft bits of the armor.
Mm-hmm.
Slight trick to this: leave almost everything black. We're going to do two highlights. One is this grey, and one will be a lighter grey we'll make up later on.
Okay.
Imagine that each one of these sets of vents, or this like bum cheek and whatever, is a cylinder, or as close to it as you can do. So here, I've just highlighted up to about midway through the leg at the absolute most point, and not quite all the way into like the ditch of the joint here. We've just done these little small lines only on the top surface. We'll then do these tiny little dots right in the middle with a lighter grey, and it will just make everything look ever so slightly shiny, a bit like how we make our gun. But more like a sort of lubricated bodysuit that the armor goes on top of, rather than something like this, which is like this oiled machine that we have.
Gotcha. Well, I forgot to paint that part of the model black, so we're just going to do that really fast.
Okay. That one too.
I forgot about the little body glove that you can see between. This guy's running something fierce, so I think he only actually has it on one side, so that'll make it a little easier, but he's got his arms too, so we'll get those.
Don't forget, on intercessors, there's those little bits around the stomach as well, like the bat suit parts.
Yep, there sure are. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'll let that dry real quick, and then I'll get back to that.
Got a message from the chat. I can feel the Custodes fandom frothing at the mouth about this. We're a bit like my Corn shield guard and stuff will be, I guess.
Yep.
I have no problem winding up 40k lore nerds.
Yeah, Imperium
because
tiers
I like the lore, but I'm never going to be that invested in it.
Yeah, I've never seen a Chaos player who was deterred by Imperium tiers. So weird how that just kind of happens to work out.
To be fair, it's one of the reasons why I don't play 30k, because I could not deal with the amount of people that are like, actually, when they play 30k. Like, look, I don't care that he's got a Mark 6 helmet and we're playing in a timeline that allegedly they didn't have that. Maybe it's just a prototype. Deal with it. Move on.
So yeah, you can't use any Mark 5 helmets if you have Ferrus Manus on the table. Just breaks the illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, I just like the models. Go away. I just want it, damn you.
Yeah, it is funny how each of the kind of the GW like circles have their own like kind of like different cliches and personalities to them. And of course, there's no absolute rules, but I actually went to my first Age of Sigmar tournament ever yesterday.
Oh, really?
I'll freely admit the prospect of 10th edition looming has me faltering a little bit.
Okay.
And so I'm just kind of palate cleansing a little bit, and I took some Hedonites of Slaanesh to a small teams event at a local store about 4 hours south of me.
Fair. How did it go?
Went really well. The team finished with 2 wins and a draw, and I won all 3 of my matches. So, which was very, very fun to explain, because I had to go in there and be like, hi, this is my second game of Age of Sigmar ever. So, like, please understand that at some point I am going to, like, do something very stupid, and I promise I'm not cheating, but simultaneously, like, I know how to play GW games, so, like, don't treat me like I'm a beginner either. It is kind of weird. I had that, like, pre-game speech of, like, hey, like, if you see me make a basic rules mistake, call me out, no problem. Like, also don't, like, I'm still going to be, like, trying to play to win. Yeah, like, you don't need to baby me.
I'm still going to ruin you. I just want to make sure I do it the right way.
Yeah, because Age of Sigmar has 3-inch engagement range. Yeah. So I just, like, walked up an inch away from a Garg, and he's like, you can't do that. I'm like, right. 1 second. Just, like, grabbed a little 3-inch measure and just boop everyone back. Which is funny, because if you snake eye a charge, it'll always fail then. Because you can never get 1 inch away to where a snake eyes actually passes your charge. Watched that happen to someone. I'm like, oh, that's so unfortunate.
Huh. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Sigmar it's a fun game, but it's a little definitely different.
I'm sure it is. One of the reasons I just won't play it is because I love competitive 40k. That's my thing. Love going to tournaments. Especially
absolutely.
paint for a living. That is the best thing about the hobby. Honestly, is that if you're in a chat and you've never been to a tournament, please give it a try. I promise you, all of the horrible stories you've heard from people are mostly extremely exaggerated and also very uncommon.
Yep.
Give it a shot. You will make some friends. I mean, this is how I met John and Vic and a load of other people in the chat, in fact. You make good friends at tournaments. But because that's the thing I love the most about the game, I know that I will go to a couple of Sigmar games and play some Sigmar games, and then I go to a 40k tournament and I get the wrong rule from the wrong game. Because my brain barely works. Ask most of the chat, they'll back that up, I think. And I know that will cost me a game at some point, and I'll just be crushed when it does. So I just stick to 40k. Sigma has some beautiful models. I'm doing a Lariel as a commission at the moment. She's fantastic. One of the best sculpts that GW have done in general. But I can't play the game. I have to stick to one.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely have no intentions of taking them both competitively. Is kind of my view, where Sigmar is more chance to just kind of go down, take a weekend down to Orlando. Girlfriend came with me, went to some parks down in Orlando, because that's where, Disney and Gatorland and Universal and a bunch of other places are. And just have, a fun, kind of relaxed weekend while we're all treading water a little bit. I definitely don't think I could try to compete at both games at the same time.
He says, well, smashing all his opponents.
Pure luck and good pairings.
Yeah. I just rolled 6s. It seemed to work. Go me.
Hey, Slanesh loves 6s. I don't see what the problem is.
Nice, dude. Right, how are you getting on with your bits of the armor and so on?
Coming along well. I've got the I just started working on the little bits of the armor and the body glove, but I've got the gun and the chainsword kind of with the gray built up along the edges.
Nice. All right, let me know when you get that bit done, and we'll move on to starting to paint down some hazard stripes, which is going to be
perfect. Should be there in just a moment.
Take your time, man. Don't rush. Because I second what Jay said. Is that the bit about my brain not working very well? Just understood.
Yeah.
Amador, hello. He said, Mohawk, you Nurgle master. I'm not sure I've mastered it, but we did okay. I went 3-3 with the worst army in the game. Turns out, even into matches where you're going to lose, Nurgle Demon scores really, really well. And it basically is the demon love child, pun intended, of Genestealer Cult and Necrons. You try and play in an uninteractive way like Necrons, but you have everything hidden in reserves. So your opponent's constantly going, well, I don't really... If I move here, this can come up here, and then he modifies my leaderships, and he could be here. And, that's a really... I don't know what to do. And that's kind of fun. That mind game with terrible demons is good. We like this.
Yeah, that's the Nurgle. So you did just pure Nurgle demons?
It's literally just pure Nurgle demons. The army. Because I was saying, so what does your army do? Basically, it doesn't do any damage, but the frogs, which are my beasts of Nurgle, they do quite a lot of damage. And my one demon prince does a lot of damage because he just wounds on 2s to hit, which is great. But everything else is kind of pants, to be honest. And we don't do much in the psychic phase, and I've only got 2 ranged weapons, so we don't shoot you either.
Did you take any of the soul grinders?
No.
No? The base just a little bit too big for you?
I will show you a soul grinder's base.
What kills me...
Here is a space marine. Okay?
Yeah,
here is a space marine next to my head.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the base of a soul grinder.
Yeah, easy. It's just it's like a 1/4 inch too big is the problem.
Is that what you think the problem? I mean, it covers the entire view of the camera.
No, I think it's only
Captain America could use this to save the world. Come on.
No, my biggest problem with this, and I'm sure you'll laugh at this, is that the Soul Grinder base is about 6.125 inches. And like you know, the biggest problem with that, of course, is the warp locus.
It doesn't cover the entire. Yeah.
It can't come in from a warp locus ever. That's just the worst.
Yeah.
If it not that a 6-inch base isn't highly inconvenient, but I feel like the soul grinder should just get an exception. If you put it base to base with a warp locus, it fits.
So a little bit the same way where gas can get out of a vehicle and stuff.
Exactly,
I think that
yeah.
should be absolutely right. Yeah, definitely. I would suggest you make that change, or just change the base size to make it 1 inch bigger in diameter.
Oh, 1 inch bigger?
1 inch bigger. Yeah. Do you know why?
Tell me.
Because that way, if you put it directly over the middle of an objective, it covers the entire thing.
Oh.
And no one can get to it. It's like, oh look, here I am. I have this objective. It is mine. But it dies quite quick, which is a problem. So.
Yeah, it kind of does. Funny how that the big Nurgle stuff still finds a way to go down.
I know. Yeah, great and clean one. I really think it should be a lot more durable than it is, but never mind. They look cool.
All right, so I think I've just about got that gray highlight finished.
Awesome.
On the bodysuit. Just doing my last little bit of it right now, and then I'm ready for chevrons.
Excellent.
Okay.
Amador says, never seen a list like this, and everyone in my club set list isn't that good. It's not. But you smack like it's nothing. It was not nothing. That was a lot of work, trust me. Am I planning to come to Germany in the future? Yes, quite definitely. That's what started the conversation about John's Custodes WTC army, actually, because he's going to go away. He's having a holiday before the team's event, and he's thinking of going to Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a nice place. Recommend.
It's a wasted opportunity to go to Europe and then like not turn it into vacation.
Yeah,
because I don't really get to do it very often. So I'm really hoping that and Germany's kind of where me and my girlfriend want to go first, because I've got a bit of German heritage. My mom did study abroad there, so
nice.
I would love to make the trip. Okay, ready.
Okay, so painting yellow, which I appreciate a lot of people find taxing. I've always found the trick is to find a really good base for your yellow. So when we paint minis, we tend to call things like primer and undercoat. So you might find yourself with a bottle of something like this and go, right, I've used a black undercoat. There's a difference in a primer and an undercoat. This is what we're going to use as an undercoat. An undercoat is something that influences the colors above it. Okay? So painting yellow, if you just take something like Flash Gets Yellow, which is a brilliant yellow from GW, and try and paint that over black, we all know it goes really, really badly. And what you end up with is this kind of horrid, sick green, and it's no good.
Yep, that's actually how I painted my first Space Marines.
Excellent.
Primed them black and put 4 coats of like Flash Gets Yellow on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And the Jelly Baby chapter was born.
They looked great, I promise.
I'll accept your word on that. But yes, something like this. Now, I use Bogren Brown from P3. GW have got 2 Tau-named paints that are basically the same sort of color. Starting with something like this, building up to yellow, means that your yellow will go on the mini really, really well. But you start off with this really desaturated color that's not fantastic. So what we do is at the end, we grab something that is a highly saturated color, such as Troll Slayer Orange or another equivalent.
Nice.
And we use that to brighten up this and take this kind of nothing color away, leaving us this fade on the model over a black undercoat.
Very cool. And I didn't happen to have any of those Tau paints handy, surprisingly, but Richard doesn't paint his Tau in orange. He does red, so we just didn't happen to have any. So I did a nice little mix of brown and orange. Just mix some army painters together on the palette. So I've got all of that already ready.
Awesome. So, painting hazard stripes. The most important thing is to keep your hazard stripes a regular width apart. Imagine some of that like caution tape and stuff, everything is equal.
Absolutely.
We need to do that here. So, start off with a reasonably thin paint from that orange-brown mix you've got, my Bogren Brown.
Mhm.
and just paint the lines at the edges. Think about how many lines you want to get down the sword. I want to do at least 3 along this part of the blade in orange. I also want the end of the blade to stay black.
Okay.
So I'm going to start off with a line here at a nice angle, just past where that rivet is or whatever. I'm going to do another one here. And as long as I feel that that's about perpendicular, these 2 lines at the same angle, and that's about wide enough, I will then, to help my brain out, put a dot in the middle. So that one, we're going to paint yellow.
Okay.
And then leave the same gap, and do another line, nice and neat and straight, at the same angle. As long as you feel that that is the right distance and everything else, then do another one. And then big dot in the middle, painting that one yellow. When I've done hazard stripes on my knights, I tend to do it with an airbrush because there's a lot of surface to cover, and painting it by hand takes just about this side of forever. So, let's not bother with that. And I use Tamiya tape, which is this kind of low stick yellow tape.
Mm-hmm.
It's a freehand lesson. I have PTSD from freehand lessons with Jay. You loved those freehand lessons, Steve. How dare you? Did quite well at them as well, to be fair.
I like to think that the story ends here and you just leave the yellow tape on, and that's how you do
That's how you do hazard stripes.
Yeah.
Just put yellow tape down, dye it with some orange at the ends, sorted. No one's noticed yet, which is crazy. But yeah, when you're doing things with yellow tape, you have to remember that the yellow is the black and the black is the yellow, and that's a real head trip. So I learned from that, just if I'm freehanding, just give myself a visual guide of this bit's yellow, this bit's black, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've got that down, we can do the same the other side. Now, what you could do is do hazard stripes that wind around like a cable, but that's really difficult on a sword and doesn't really look so good. You've got a lot of stripes going in one direction, and the other side they go in the other direction, and it just looks weird and confusing.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is take these lines up to the like the back of the sword, the flat bit,
mm-hmm.
paint them across that nice and flat. So here, and where's the other one? There. This gives me a guide to use on the other side where these ends of my stripe should be. And we know we're going to paint over all this lot, but we can come down to the front and go, right, cool, this one goes across here, so that's that bit, and that's that bit. And then you've got some dots, you can just join the dots, basically.
Yep. Okay. Let me put those dots in.
And that'll help give you some reasonably even hazard stripes on both sides. Obviously, fine tune it, make sure everything fits and works. It doesn't matter if they're exactly the same width as the ones on the other side or not, because you'll never be able to see them both at the same time. But it's a good method to get reasonably straight and neat stripes. Steve says, I love that it taught me to use transfers in the future. Yeah, but you can't always get the decal you want for stuff. I mean, look at I painted. Steve is both a student and a client, so he's just giving me grief for the sake of it. Whilst he's on holiday, haven't you got better things to do on holiday? Try and avoid the sun, you great big ginger man. But yes, he loved the fact that on his Eldrad Hawthorne, I spent probably about 2 hours doing this tiny bit of freehand on a very wavy cloak.
Yep.
Mostly because he didn't have to do it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I want to move past transfers. I would love to get to that stage. Right.
They're very useful for a lot of things, but you're kind of tied into what's on a sheet of stuff, and sometimes it's not quite what you want. Like this giveaway army I painted, we've used a load of decals on there because I don't have time to put decals on 110 minis. Well, no, I did. I had time to do that. I didn't have time to do freehand on 110 minis.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean,
yeah.
I will almost certainly still use transfers sometimes. I just don't want to be tied to them. It's kind of where I'm at.
Having the option, unlocking that little bit of technique is definitely a big thing. It's one of those like Neo moments of painting where you're like, listen, I understand how to use the brush and the paint and get it nice and thin and get the effects that I want, which means all I've got to do is draw the right shapes to make these circles look like a skull or a bunch of roses or some diamonds for harlequins, or like we're doing now with just these like lines, straight lines for hazard stripes.
All right, just a bunch of straight lines. Let's do it.
Cool. So once you've done that, fill them in, and this might take 2 or 3 coats, but it will come up as a nice mustardy yellow rather than that horrible green that you get if you just did flash gets yellow over black.
Yeah, that's exactly horrible. Horrible green is about how that looked.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I let it dry and did so many coats of it might have been Iandan yellow. I did so many coats of Iandan yellow that by the end of it, it was in fact yellow, not green. But it wasn't maybe as smooth. It wasn't as smooth as an airbrush. Let's leave it at that.
Was it, say, perhaps 20% larger in all dimensions as well?
Something like that. Yeah. It's funny. I actually didn't have to paint the Aquila on his chest. I broke down that because it was an Assault on Black Reach starter set. Were the unfortunate victims of my ambitions. I still have one of them.
The other Marine and Orc one, wasn't it? Because I wasn't in the game when that came out.
Oh yeah, that was the
second ed, but with extra stuff.
Yeah, it was the 5th edition starter with Orcs and Space Marines. And yes, indeed, I kept one of them. If you ever piss me off, I'm gonna start sending you pictures of that one guy and his haunting helmet. Yeah, that's my threat.
That's okay. I'll respond with pictures of a well-painted yellow Space Marine. Just to
Ew, that would scare me.
You realize just how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
No, yellow's fun to paint. Yellow's actually one of my favorite colors to paint because it's got such a great final look to it. If you do it right, and it's only difficult to paint if you don't know a couple of tricks. And there's basically 2 ways of starting to paint yellow. You can paint yellow over something like ochre and then come back and fix the shadows, or you can paint yellow over pink and still come back and fix the shadows, and you get like a warm rosy yellow rather than a warm orange yellow.
Yeah.
And my Nurgle demons are all painted yellow. Most of those go from pink to yellow or red to yellow. Some of them go from green to yellow just because I needed something to make the other squad look different. And they're horrifying.
Pink to yellow is the thing that makes my brain melt. When I was painting my all yellow Night Army, my friend of mine who's very very talented painter was telling me, he's like, all right, so you need to either base them like a nice like warm brown or like a nice like a fur brown or something, or pink. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't believe you on either of these, but I'll choose the brown because that seems like the less made up one.
Right. Do you want to know why pink works?
I would love to know why, if you can break it down for my 5th grade brain.
So yellows, there's 2 different sets of primary colors: red, yellow, blue, and cyan, magenta, yellow. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
One is essentially the way that computers look at things, and one is essentially the way people look at things. But as artists, we can choose to use both. If you make yellow from a mixture of orange, which is just red and yellow, up to yellow, which is what we're going to do here, we'll end up with essentially a gradient from orange to yellow. Then you've taken red and yellow and mixed that together to make orange, right?
Yep.
How do you make pink, though?
Oh, red and white, obviously.
Red and white, right? So if you take red and white and then mix yellow with it, you get a pale orange. You get like a peach color. So that's how pink works to get the transition to yellow. You still essentially, by the time you've got yellow over that pink, got orange. And so it works. It still guides you through those gradients. You couldn't do it with everything. You certainly can't go, right, you know what, I'm going to paint yellow. I'm going to use blue as my base, because you'll end up with green. But because you've taken one of the 2 things that make orange and used a different version of that, it's just like an accent on it.
Yeah.
The fade still works. It's still good. Color theory is full of these little tricks. I haven't got anything to hand, really, but I did a Magnus the Red, where I wanted to paint him like the old epic Magnus, where he's blue with red armor.
Yep.
So I painted all of the armor plates in dark blue in gradients up to very bright blue, and then added yellow to it after putting some white on. So we had like dark blue up to white with yellow spots, and it looked weird. Right? Everyone's looking at me like I've grown a second head. Like, what the hell are you doing? This makes no sense whatsoever. You said you're painting it blue. You said you're painting it red. And you painted it blue, and then you've ruined it. And you just take some red and you put red as a pass over the top with the airbrush. And what it means is the red and the blue mix together essentially, and you create like a very red purple. It's actual darker red tones in the shades.
Mm-hmm.
The red goes over the white and becomes a bright, almost pinkish red, but it goes over the yellow and it becomes this very powerful, like scarlet red. So you get lots of different kinds of red that are all red.
Yeah.
But the setup is what's been important to allow you to get to red. And that takes doing. Obviously, that takes a little bit of knowing that one extra thing every time to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, color theory is great. It lets us do these stupid things, usually just to create some clickbait YouTube thumbnail, to be honest. But
yeah.
It does work.
It's, just to show off to the paint judge that you can do something cool. And honestly, what I was thinking this whole time that you were explaining this was I was thinking, like, what if I built up a yellow from a cyan and it would be loud and a little bit green and a little bit off-putting? What if I did that for like a chaos army that I was trying to kind of hurt your eyes just a little bit?
You'd be considered a very bad man, but it would look pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, say, like Alpha Legion, you've got the current fashion where everyone paints them with like shiny blue.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the old school way of doing it, where it's like blue and green on the model. You could basically end up with something a little bit like that, where you've got blue and yellow that go through green here and there on the model. So green is the unifying color that makes it work. And you've got patches of yellow and patches of blue all around it. You could definitely make it work. It is a lot of work because you've got such a huge contrast between the two, and that transition needs to be smooth. But it could work.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of like a Slaanesh army, because I'm thinking, and I'll freely admit, I'm actually thinking of like the mortal Slaanesh side, because I have a 2,000 points of gray Age of Sigmar Slaanesh that are completely untouched by primer because there wasn't a paint requirement, and because I built the models on Friday.
Wait. You went to a tournament.
Yeah.
Smashed 3 people with a grey army that you'd literally only just finished building.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. You bad man. Bad man.
It was a very fun event. I did feel bad about the models, but this is my second game of Age of Sigmar. Yeah, the first game of Age of Sigmar that I played, to be fair, did have a lot of Primaris Intercessors and a Chaos Knight on the table, but I assure you we were using Sigmar rules.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those funny like in-house moments where you just have a game with your buddies where just everything is the wrong model, but you just kind of agree on it and you move forward.
Mm-hmm. I've had drop pods as we don't already have red solo cups, but those kind of disposable plastic cups, basically.
Would you like me to bring you a red solo cup to WTC, like a whole bag of them?
I think we've actually got things in place for that.
Oh, okay.
Actually, this year I can't really talk about it, but there's lots of things that we're doing to try and make the player's experience as comfortable as possible this year. Last year, I think was still okay. Mm-hmm. The only thing that made it uncomfortable was the record-breaking temperatures that Belgium had for that 1 week. On Tuesday after the event, it was wetting it down with rain, standard Belgian summer. But yes, we're trying to do lots of things this year to make it a little bit more comfortable for players, just in case we end up in a similar situation where heat is an issue and so on.
Like, I've got to tell you, I was very comfortable because it just felt like home to me.
Well, that, and you had a gopher. Josh Conant, who I must say is an absolute sweetheart. And I played him before at a tournament. He's a great dude. We ended up with a draw, Knights versus GSC in the old ITC rules, which was really hard to get a draw in.
Oh, yeah.
But he was an absolute champ. He was off every day getting ice lollies and things like that to keep you guys cool What an absolute legend. That's a top tip for anyone that's going to a team event. Find it in your team budget to get one extra dude at least to just come and help you out, make the players feel more comfortable, help set up the tables, get your drinks, all these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was an absolute champion. That is completely true. He definitely helped. But I've played my share of 40K on a porch in July in Florida. Oh yeah, it's how you celebrate. We do our little 4th of July barbecue. Everyone's playing on outside under, hopefully in the shade. It's beautiful.
As the palest man on the planet, apart from Ginger Steve in chat, who somehow gets a suntan indoors, I might have to pass out on that one. I think that would kill me.
Fair. All right, so I've kind of got my orangey brown ochre, all Excellent. Good. Did a couple thin coats, and it's looking like it's already dry, which is wonderful.
Good stuff. So a similar way to how we did the blend between these two, working that mathematical ratio that scales up, do the same thing with the yellow. And what we'll end up with is bright yellow at one side, and this slightly looking mustardy, orangey brown at the other.
Yeah.
And then we just glaze in over the top of that with Trollstar Orange at the very end. So get yourself your blends, make sure they're nice and smooth, work up through the steps in the formula, keep the paint nice and thin. It doesn't need to be a glaze, but it's got to be something a little thinner than before, perhaps, because we're working with a color that's much brighter now. It's going to be much more obvious if there are some badder areas. Badder? That's a terrible word. Worse areas of your blend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some Batter Moon's yellow. That's what we need to avoid.
But Batter Moon's yellow, yeah, that's never gonna go away, is it? Oh, damn it! Red card for John.
Oh, yeah, that will work.
I have the power. I will abuse it.
So I'm guessing here that as we're working this up, we're going forward, kind of leaving the darker, more mustardy parts right at the bottom of the chain, sort of building up to lighter towards the top.
Yes, but
Perfect.
Also. Do the top line, like the leading line of the chainsaw, bring this up as well. So start off essentially with these like almost L-shaped or boot-shaped highlights. So nice strong line here at the front, and a diagonal gradient from here to here, basically. So top is nice and bright. That front line is nice and bright.
Gotcha.
This will give us a really powerful look to these stripes.
Okay. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. We'll find out
Excellent.
In a second. All right, let's do it.
Now, if you want to really show off, what you can do is make the one at the very top brighter overall than the one at the very bottom. So it draws the eye up. You remember how a little while back we were talking about the way of looking at a model and guiding your audience's view around it using paths? Well, if we have it darker here and brighter here, it will naturally draw the eye up to the top of the chainsaw, which is nicely in a line with the other focal areas on the model, the handgun, the head. So we've got all our focal points in a nice line. Lines up well with the shoulder pad trim. Everything will be concentrated in this area if we do that.
All right, let's do it. Chevrons make me very happy, Jay. I'm very happy that we're doing this one. This is one of the ones I think, for everyone in the chat, this is one of the ones where when we were first planning this was in my initial list of ideas. I was like, teach John how to paint chevrons, because I would love to get to work this into a lot of armies. Frankly, basically any army that I think I can get away with it, I think I would just stop and put a couple of hazard stripes in.
Oh, you can put them on anything.
Mm-hmm. Anything but Tyranids.
It literally doesn't matter what it is. Hazard stripes can go on it. I think Eldar is the only place it starts to look a bit weird.
I would still do it on like a striking scorpion, some of those like older rogue trader
on those
style
chainswords. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Eldar I think could get away with it, because I think Eldar had a couple hazard stripes in like old school, like 2nd edition artwork. They definitely have moved away from that, but I think I could get away with it in some places. Tyranids is the army, I just don't know where I would do it.
Oh, no. I've got you with that one. I did a Gene Stealer Cult Patriarch, so basically a Broodlord. And the guy that won it was a giveaway on the channel. He was an Iron Warriors player. He said, bet you can't do hazard stripes. I went, okay, gotcha. I'll do hazard stripes. And think about nature, where we see yellow and black on animals.
Okay.
Mostly insects.
Did it banded on like the on the chitin?
Oh yeah,
That's pretty
it
cool.
basically looked like a murder hornet. I'm allergic to wasps, and so I spent a lot of time looking at source material for this that made me a little uncomfortable, I will admit.
Yep.
But oh yes, you can definitely hazard strike the hell out of a Tyranid army.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna bug you
Nimrod,
for a
this
picture of
question
that.
to you, Jay. Give my shoulder pads a nice highlight after shading. Would you reckon I could use a thinned down yellow contrast paint? I'm assuming you're using, so you're painting some like Imperial Fists, where you have a yellow shoulder and you're trying to bring back.
I suppose the base color does
yellow.
matter a lot here.
More info is always good with this. There's no such thing as useless information when answering questions like this. To be honest, one of the best ways to really pop out highlights on yellow, you know how we were talking earlier on about using Bogrim Brown or another ochre as a undercoat for something to influence the top coat. Once you've done all of your yellow, if you do a very thin line of white and then come back in and glaze yellow over the top of it,
Yep.
that yellow pops. Oh, Refi, right. Excellent. Bro, it's bad enough I have to remember people's internet names. I'm not going to be able to remember two different internet names for the same person.
That's fair.
So, he's got red Chaos Knights for shoulder pads. You could use yellow, but remember, contrast paint is a highly saturated paint. That means the color is extremely powerful, right? At that point, you run the risk of it just being a yellow splodge with a weird watermark around the edge. What I would probably do if you're looking to take red and lift it, but keep it red, is just go further with the shading and then reapply more red to the top. So I use Kador Red Base from P3, which is an extremely strong, very saturated red acrylic paint. P3 paints are basically made using a liquid pigment or a dye rather than a powdered medium, which is what most other acrylic paints are made from.
That's kind of cool.
And so they have this kind of quality that you find predominantly in inks, because they're, again, made from a dye, of being really, really strong tones, very vibrant, very powerful. So I would probably just shade everything down further and then go back with red to make the red very, very red. Definitely red and not orange, which is what you run the risk of doing if you start adding in a little yellow. For your edge highlights, by all means, add in a tiny, tiny amount of yellow so it just tints it to orange, and keep those highlights really small and really sparing, because otherwise they have a very gestalt effect on the model where the more you put down, even though they're very small, the more the overall color looks like the other thing. Hopefully that helps, bro.
Hopefully so. That's some good advice. All right, I am working my way up through the different yellows here.
Excellent. Same here. We've got 10 minutes, so we should have plenty of time to finish this off. And then I have to run to a lesson, unfortunately, guys, so we have to keep the stream nice and short today. But we'll be back next Monday.
We absolutely will. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Doop, doop, doop. So just building up yellows. And I guess the thought here is that we're going to kind of keep building this yellow up. I'm guessing at some point we're going to mix in a little bit of white to do that kind of that final highlight before we do an orange glaze.
We absolutely can. So essentially what we'll do there is, rather than mixing in the white, is we can just take white, do a quick edge highlight essentially, and then we just put yellow straight over the top of it.
Oh, okay, fair.
So again, it goes back to that theory of like using an undercoat to influence the top coats. And if you look at real painters, and I don't mean miniature painters or even people that paint pictures, I mean people that paint walls and stuff like that, they will quite often go, right, okay, we're painting this wall green. So the first thing I need to do is paint it all grey or brown or blue, so that when I put this coat of green over the top, it gets exactly the colour that you want your wall to be. This comes from that, essentially. So you are setting up the next color by giving it that little bit of an undercoat, that extra bit of attention.
Gotcha.
One of the ways to think about painting is, I don't know if you had these in the US, but over here, every Christmas, people would end up being given a box of sweets that were like chocolates that got each individually wrapped in like a colored cellophane, right? We called them Roses or Quality Streets. That were the two big brand names that did it. And these little bits of colored cellophane, if you like unwrap the sweet and look through it, the world looks red or blue or green, whatever color it is. Okay. And you can think about stuff like that as a filter. So in lighting effects, for stage and theater and film and so on, they have little colored gels they put in front of the light to make everything look a certain way and put a filter over it. If you thin your paint down, essentially what you're putting on the model is that little bit of colored cellophane. You've got a filter going over a surface. So if your paint's nice and thin and translucent, it will still show through some of the stuff from beneath that. It will just be influenced with whatever color your paint is. So changing the way that we paint a little bit because of translucencies and creating the setup using different undercoats and stuff to get ready for things, which, like I was saying with I painted red by starting off with everything being blue and shades of yellow and stuff before we eventually got to a point where, like, oh, look, suddenly everything becomes red in one fell swoop. That's a different method of painting, but it's something that if you start to understand it can become really powerful because it can help you get to places in a different way that you wouldn't necessarily always be able to do with a brush. Sometimes you might think, well, I need to airbrush that because this color is a really pain in the ass color to do. But if I just modify my process and start here instead of here, then you can get it to work.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I definitely fall into the airbrush the hardest colors, detail brush the easiest colors, even if it's not the proportion of like total work.
Yeah.
Where like I often end up like painting a lot of my like doing like airbrushing like models white, even if they're not actually gonna have that much white in them, because I'm like, yeah, but I can paint the black and the red parts by hand pretty easy, so we'll just do that rather than mucking around with trying to paint the white perfectly.
I've done videos on how to paint white and yellow and like the let's just say quote unquote problem colors for hobbyists.
Yeah, those are the two that I hear the most.
Yeah, they really are. Black, I think, is actually right up there though with those. Most people can't actually paint black very well. Because they still get stuck in this rut of, well, I've got to paint it black and I've got to highlight it grey, otherwise it doesn't look black. And like, maybe then they start looking into chromatic blacks because they see a tutorial by like me or Marco or someone like that on the internet. Okay, well, it turns out I don't paint black with black, I paint black with blue. But then you've still got to use black, otherwise you've just painted blue.
Yeah.
And black can be a tricky color for people to get really, really right.
I've long made my peace that I just like dark grays as my blacks.
That's one way of doing it, man.
Yep. So my Death Watch army is just all gray. It's dark gray. There's some depth to it, but it's not black. It's just gray Death Watch army, and I think it looks good.
Nothing wrong with that, dude.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do, the easiest way to become a better painter is to lower your standards. Advice you should not follow.
Can we edit that out and post?
I am, of course.
How do you become a better painter, John? I'm going to lower my standards. All right, cool. What do you want to learn for first lesson? Wet blending and non-metallic metal? All right.
Heck yeah.
I feel you've broken into the spirit of this really well.
Oh, I just like to tease Jay a little bit. Alrighty, so building this yellow up. I don't know how well.
Cool. Let me know when you get to pretty much pure yellow, which is what I'm putting on now. You can see this is going on more as an edge highlight to things rather than a full pass of yellow.
Yep.
And then we're just going to do a few dots of white. And we're going to glaze the entire surface with yellow.
Okay.
So remember how we did on the shoulder pad trim, where at the end we were coming back in with that orange?
I do.
And we're just warming everything up. We're going to drop that white into here. We use yellow to glaze everything, which will help unify things a little bit. And then we might have time to glaze the orange back down to warm it all back up.
Okay. All right. So I'm putting on my final yellow highlight here. Nice and thin does it. There we go.
So how are you going to paint your Tyranids then, John?
So due to the nature of streaming, it is very likely that I will be keeping the color scheme the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that as I need to use old models, I can put them next to new models and just say,
Yeah.
hey, paint quality may be different, but it's going to be the same army. So I think I'm going to stick with painting Hive Fleet Behemoth, because that is the army that the overwhelming majority of the Tyranids in this house are painted. Which, funny enough, isn't my original scheme. My original scheme was like a modified Leviathan, but it was painted poorly, and a while ago. And when I moved in with Art of War and started that, Nick and Richard both had Hive Fleet Behemoth as their paint scheme. So I just kind of started using their models and just painting the new thing. Like, Tyranids need to own 2D McCarrans. All right, I'm going to buy 2D McCarrans, paint them Behemoth. Yeah. And I've just kind of slowly been going through and updating it to the Behemoth scheme. So at this point, I'm playing with all models that I painted, but I kind of started off by just grabbing Richard and Nick's gaunts instead of my gaunts, and then adding a couple of important units. So I'll be sticking to Behemoth.
I like the Behemoth color scheme, though.
Oh, it's beautiful. I
use standard Nid ones. I think it's the best one.
Yeah, I like it a lot, and then I mix in a lot of yellow, a lot more yellow than the stock scheme.
Right.
Because red, blue, and yellow just kind of happen to all look good together. So I use yellow for a lot of like the fleshy bits. The lash whips are always yellow. Wing membranes I do in like a kind of a mustardy yellow.
All of the membranes and things.
Exactly. Yeah, I do all the little off Tyranid membranes. I do that in a lot of yellow.
Nice.
Alrighty. Well, I think I'm.
See, you can see what I've done with the white here. Yeah. These little highlights right at the top corner of each one. Just a little line in both directions.
Yep.
Nothing crazy. Then we're going to take yellow, and we are going to get this to a proper glaze. So this is way too thick.
Mm-hmm.
Take more water, add that in. And glazing, guys, I know a lot of you will have heard people saying, got to use glaze mediums, got to use flow improver, got to use this, that, and the other. Trust me, you just need water. It's cheap. It comes out the tap. You can drink it. Not with paint in it.
Well, I put paint in my water, so I think I'll have to stop drinking it.
Damn. Well, I clearly put quite a lot of yellow paint in this, but,
Ooh.
That's juice, just to be clear. I'm not drinking paint water. But a glaze you can make with just water, and it should just tint a surface, okay? So now I'm making myself look like a nicotine addict, obviously, with just this yellow glaze, but you can see it'll take several coats to become fully opaque. That's kind of the point of a glaze. It should take between 5 and 15 coats. 5 is probably the minimal amount of coats for full opacity, otherwise your glaze is too thick and not really a glaze. 15 for me is like any more than that to get full opacity, and like what are you doing with your life? I bet you're the kind of person that makes your own puff pastry and stuff as well, or your own mayonnaise or something. But yeah, somewhere between those two is the good sweet spot. It's the Goldilocks spot. And if you glaze this over, don't overload your brush. Remember, if paint takes more than 2 or 3 seconds to dry, you've put too much paint on the model, which means you've put too much paint in your brush. Don't get into that trap. Glazes should dry almost instantaneously to allow you to put another coat of paint down over the top. There's no need for things like hair dryers and stuff when glazing if you're doing it right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm going to do 2 or 3 passes of that over everything, making sure we cover all of the white, but it's also just helping to give us a nice little transition between the more desaturated yellow brown that we started with, and it makes everything that we might have done, it was a little bit scratchy in places if we were rushing, just helps smooth out all of those bits.
Right on. I'm just finishing up that white, so now I'll start to make my yellow glaze. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to ask real quick, because I'm definitely going to need this abandonment, although I know I also have to let you go soon. Do you have a process for going back to covering up details? Because as I'm looking at it, I'm realizing that I've made the yellow stripes just a little bit thicker than the black ones. And
Okay.
so I
you wanna
might,
slim them down.
I'm probably going to end up slimming them down from the back with just a little bit of black paint. And just real
Yep.
quick, you don't have to show me because yours is probably you probably just didn't mess up your brush and then you're good. But what's your process for, I guess, getting the rest of that black back up to the same color as the rest of it?
So essentially, there's two things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is just shade in some grey as you work, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you can do is go, cool, I've made a mistake. I'll cover that up later on with some battle damage.
Okay.
And honestly, whenever you see battle damage on minis that are reasonably clean, and then somewhere there's a little bit of battle damage, that's usually because the painter went, oh, bollocks, I've messed that up. All right. Battle damage then. To be fair, it's on a weapon, it's fine. It should be being damaged here and there. Yep, that'll do. It's a relic of battle and blah blah narrative reasons. Go fluff boys. Sorted, done.
Yeah. I'm sure
So
that
your
if I
choice on either one.
Yeah. I'm sure that if I ever paint a perfect weapon, I will then go back and add battle damage anyways. But if I happen to be painting it like me, then maybe I will accidentally choose where the battle damage is going by virtue of painting
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, it just happened to be destiny that battle damage went there. That's all.
Yeah.
So last step for me, I'm going to take some Troll Slayer orange,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I'm going to work to a glaze. So nice and thin, just water again, no crazy extra stuff, just out the tap into your palette. Happy days. And again, we're looking for that super thin, just barely influencing the surface, as you can see here. Your thumbnail, by the way, is always a good place to test this because it's just your body heat dries it pretty instantly, and you can build up a couple of thicknesses very, very fast. That's why painters tend to have a dirty thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Though I've seen some people that use their hand to clean off dry brush paint, and my housemate occasionally has had a green hand. That's just weird. And here we do the other direction, obviously, and we don't want to cover the whole thing. We don't make this orange, so we just work down into the corner, and we're just going to warm up everything there. So this takes our desaturated base coat that we used and just warms it right up into that orange part of the color spectrum, and it makes your yellow just so much more like strong and vibrant. It has a lot more pop to it. This is the secret of painting yellow, is this bit right at the end. Everything else is like, yeah, cool, you've done a bright yellow in places, but this helps to bring all of it together and give you a really solid yellow.
Sounds great. Okay. Well, I know I can't keep you, but maybe next week, battle damage is one of those things that I may need to learn. Not to imply that I missed a brush stroke here. I'm sure this is perfect. However, theoretically, if there was part of this that I did make a mistake, maybe we could work on how I would cover that.
Definitely do. On that note, I'm afraid I do have to go. I will be back here next Monday, and you can catch me 5 other days a week normally on stream. We'll be streaming live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. UK time, then Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Not this weekend coming, but the weekend after, I am giving away a Thunderhawk gunship.
Ooh.
And what amounts to, including that, 5,000 points of Space Marines. It's the stream's 4th birthday. It's going to be epic. You could win that for free just by watching. So tune in, twitch.tv/Mohawk Miniatures.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We really appreciate your support. Make sure you hit that like button, share, subscribe, and of course, check out the link below if you want to get access to a free trial to the Art of War Worm. Thank you so much for watching and supporting us. Jay, really appreciate you being here. We'll catch you next Monday.
Dude.
Bye.